Hey Randy,
I hear you loud and clear, buddy.
how you doing?
I'm holding steady. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everybody from the Sensible Bigfoot crowd, got my friend here, Daniel Hamilton. Now, we've got multiple names I can use. I'm going to throw them out there. Dano, Daniel, Dan, or Tony. What is it?
Whoa, where did you come up with Tony, man? Where'd you get that?
I got that off your Facebook page in parentheses. Like
Okay,
maybe your buddies back in the day used to call you Tony.
that's my family. My middle name is Anthony, so I grew up as Tony. Some very close friends still call me Tony. But normally it's I guess once I got into high school, it went from Tony to Daniel or Dan. And my nickname Dano was given to be my daughter's great grandfather over 20 years ago. you know, and so it
Yeah.
just kind of stuck.
All right. Well, yeah. Of course, I go to people's Facebook pages so I can grab whatever information I can immediately before an interview, so I don't look like a total fool about knowing who a person is. I just want to let everybody know that I did come into contact with Daniel just kind of briefly. We both belong to a same Facebook page. So I did come across him, I believe, last year, but we never had any communications or anything like that till recently, and we have a mutual friend. Uh, Dan Dano is a veteran, and our mutual friend is a veteran. So
Yep.
we recently became friends. I see that he is a podcaster, a YouTuber. He's on every platform out there. I only know YouTube, so it's all Greek to me. But he's on all of them. The Cryptid podcast, you can find him on YouTube and all of them.
Yep.
So uh, go give him some love. He's got a lot of content on there. So maybe we can both have a kind of reciprocal relationship that way. Certainly, you can never get enough people to interview in this arena. But you might be able to cull some interviews from my crowd who I've dealt with that you may not even know about.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's always a benefit. But Daniel and I had a phone conversation yesterday or day before. I can't even be for sure exactly when, but super nice guy. The reason I wanted him on here is because he is an encounter survivor. That you Hey, you guys know me. I am a behavioral specialist. I am interested in what happened, the behaviors around what happened, uh, how you perceived what happened. All of those things are important aspects for me when it comes to encounter stories. And before we get to your encounter stories, buddy, which I believe you have more than one,
Hmm.
uh, at least even if they're B encounters where there was no sighting involved, they're still all equally important as far as how much information you can pull out of them. But first, let's just go back to you being a boy, and when did you have access to an area like with woods?
Oh man, that that started on early on. I mean, my dad was in the military. My dad is a Vietnam veteran. Um, uh, was wound up getting stationed in Belgium. Shape military, um, shape headquarters, which is NATO headquarters. And from there, he had my mom come on over. I was born over in Belgium, and then emergency leave, emergency duty. My dad was sent back to the United States because my grandfather was dying, and so he was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. The earliest memory that I have of being in the woods, um, I want to say 5, 6 years old, if that. You know, going camping with my dad, just spending time with my dad, and yeah, and then him wanting to teach me how to hunt and fishing, lots of fishing, lots of hiking, lots of I look back at it now, survival, showing me, you know, you get lost, look for this, look for that. Um, you can eat these, don't eat these. This is what you can do to make shelter. This is what you can use to make shelter. Um, this is a good area to place your shelter. All just random little things. Growing up, so uh, places that we lived in Washington State, Graham, Washington, Tacoma, Washington, Spanaway, Washington. There was always woods around somewhere. So my entire life, um, I've had access to woods.
I'm Rather than walking on you while you're talking, I'm just going to raise up my fingers if you would allow me the moment to ask a question.
Hmm.
Um, so all of the learning that you did in the woods as a youngster, whether it came to the type of woodland foods that you could possibly process from your natural surroundings, were those things that you learned from, say, like your father or a friend, or were you part of a Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, those
Well,
type of things?
I learned a lot from my dad. I really did. My dad grew up in Alaska, was born in Oregon. When he was 5 years old, him and his family, they moved up to Alaska via a boat, their family boat. Um, and everything they had from Oregon, they moved up to Alaska, settled in Ketchikan, Alaska. My dad was a fisherman. Family were fishermen and loggers and things like that. So he passed a lot of that knowledge on to me. And I was in the Cub Scouts. I was in the Boy Scouts. Um, so yeah, I've had other family members. My uncle would also show me some things like that. So yeah,
Well, I remember the badges. I remember the patches from Cub Scouts, the wolf,
the bear,
I
the
believe
bobcat, the wolf.
the
Yep.
bobcat. I think I might have only got as far as the bobcat. Uh, but yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so yeah, so from what I understand, your dad purchased some land. I mean, you were lucky as a young kid because your dad purchased some land that gave you a place to really explore. What was that all about?
So we had just recently moved back to live with my dad. Now, I'm going to preface this. Both my parents were married 4 times. The fourth time was the charm for them. Um, I didn't always have the greatest relationship with my step parents, primarily my stepmothers. And this was a time where my mom was married, but my dad was single. And whenever my dad was single, life was great because I had his undivided attention. Outside of work, it was always us and my dad, my brother and I, and my dad. And we had just moved back with my dad about eighth grade year, so I was about 12 years old. This is 1984, and it was in Graham, Washington. Now, when we moved back, he was living in like a adult only RV park, like senior only, that type thing. Um, and my dad didn't want us living in there, even though the owners said it was okay. We did not make nuisances of ourselves. We helped pick up around the park without even really being told or asked to do it. We just did it. But my dad bought 5 acres of land, and it was not far away from this park, this RV park. Um, and I remember one day he came and picked us up from Tacoma. We were hanging out with my aunt and my uncle and my cousins, and we drove by the park. I'm like, well, what are you doing? He's like, I got to show you boys something. And we go down a few miles, and he takes a right, and he goes down about a mile or so, and takes another right, and we go down about a few miles again, and we turn off of this paved road onto this gravel road. And the gravel road kind of, when you came off the paved road, it kind of dipped down like this, and then it leveled out, and then it would have like another little rise, and it would go for a little while, and then it would dip down before it came to our what would become our property, our land. And I remember my dad pulling in, and we were living in a fifth wheel at the time. My dad was planning on building an A-frame home on this land, and he goes and like over a weekend, he had moved this fifth wheel. He had built a deck on it, and he had friends help him out with it and stuff. And we're like, "What is going on?" He's like, "I want to show you boys something." And so we walked this entire property. He goes, "This is all of ours." He goes, "You guys have at it." He had already started taking and marking certain trees that he wanted to cut down because he wanted to use them as part of the house. And he goes, "Have fun, do whatever," you know. And so we had, my dad had built a go-kart with us, and we had a mini bike. And
How many siblings did you have at the time?
well, at the time, again, this is a long story. Uh, I have an older sibling, same mom, different dad. He was born before my mom and my dad were married. Then my little brother Bobby, who has passed away. Him and I had same mom, same dad. And then for my dad's second marriage, we have a younger brother, same dad, different moms. So at this time, I had four siblings or three siblings. And again, it's a whole long story, but I only ever saw two of them. So
Okay, so at the time you guys go out to this property,
it's just me and
it's
Bobby.
so okay, so it was probably like kids in a candy store where so
Oh,
far all of your time had been spent in this RV park,
hmm
very, very secluded and limited areas of activity to all of
hmm
a sudden you now have access to unlimited woods in y'all's point of view.
Yeah. And, Randy, I could close my eyes right now and I can give you, it's not like that anymore. I've Googled Earthed it and the forests are not anything like they used to be. There's some more homes built up and, a couple like pop-up businesses that people had a garage and they got a mechanic shop in there or something. It's not like it used to be, back in 84, but I could close my eyes and give you the absolute layout of that place. I wish I could close my eyes, snap a picture, print a picture so you could see what the land looked like because um, you're right. It was to me, it was a paradise. Old growth trees, big pine trees, other indigenous trees of Washington State. I remember seeing stumps of trees that have long since been gone that were easily 5 feet across, maybe, and they'd have huckleberry bushes grown out of them, and the red huckleberries. Walking along, you'd find salmon berries and blackberries and wild raspberries, and it just animal. I saw my first porcupine on this property. I'd never seen a porcupine in person before, and I one day I'm walking out to the road. And there's a porcupine just nonchalantly walking across the gravel road off into the woods. I thought that was the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen in my life. But yeah, we walked around this property and it was just it literally, like you said, kids in a candy store. I mean, there we could do anything and everything. It was just amazing.
Well, yeah, and give you know given the nature of what you were like as a child, you often sought solitude in places outside the home where you'd go out, to spend a little time alone. And what a great place that would be, especially in your mind then, knowing that, my God, all I got to do is go to the edge of the woods here, and then I'm alone. Once I go past those woods, I can be alone at any time. And some of us find solace in being alone.
That's true, and I think this is where my brother and we'd always been close, even though we weren't necessarily raised together all the time. I was very close to my dad. My brother was very close to my mom. But the times my brother and I did live together, it's like we never missed a step. It's like no time had ever passed between us. It's like we picked right up where we left off. And one thing that we always loved to do together was camp. Just me and my brother. I remember, the little magazine and book sales or whatever you'd bring home and you'd have people buy like wrapping paper or candy from you and you could win a prize if you sell so many things. I remember my brother, we just canvassed all these areas around us and we sold so much stuff. My dad was mad because he had to go around and help us deliver it all. But the prizes, we both won. There was like a camping set, and you had like a two-man raft and a two-man tent and sleeping bags and fishing poles. We both won one of those. So we thought that was just the greatest thing because now we could go camping with our own stuff out in the woods. And that's what we did a lot of. We did a lot of camping, necessarily not far away from the house. I mean, we'd go into the woods, we set up our tent, and if we kind of walked a little ways, and I call the camper the house. We could see the house. And one thing that my dad, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So First of all, when you're talking about the land and you're talking about all the food products there's in the form of berries and all the different types of
Hmm.
berries, what you haven't mentioned, but I thought about asking once you said that you got a little raft and a fishing pole, was there a creek going through the property or at least close to the property?
No, there wasn't. And it's funny thing is we would always, whenever we would go into Tacoma, this was in Graham, so whenever we go to Tacoma, um, we would bring out one of our rafts with us, and we would always go down this place called Point Defiance. And there's a beach called Owens Beach, and we would take these little blow up two-man rafts, and we'd go out into Puget Sound with our little paddles, paddle on it. We'd never go out too. I mean, but it. We didn't have any fear. I look at it now. I'm like, man, that's pretty stupid. What we were doing, because if the current got a hold of us, we were done for. We were
Or a
drifting
whale?
away. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. But yeah, we would go fishing all the time. We knew of a couple of ponds that we could go to and fish out of. Um, but again, not just necessarily with this land, but we lived in West Virginia, and we would wade through creeks and get like snapping turtles for my great grandma so she could make turtle soup, and we would catch crawdads and things like that. So yeah, my brother and I, we did a ton of fishing. It didn't matter wherever we're at, we would always go fishing and camping.
So, did anything ever happen on your dad's 5 acres that made you think, hey, there could be something going on here?
Well, and it's funny that you asked that. So when my dad moved the camper there and built the deck, he had put this really tall pole. Like if you're looking at the camper, it's the back left corner of the deck. And he put this really tall pole and then a platform on top of that. I later found out in life that my dad was an avid bird watcher. He could tell you what kind of bird was whistling. He could tell you just by, oh, that's this such and such, such and such. Oh, that bird must be confused because it shouldn't be up here at this time of year. I mean, I didn't know this about my dad. Um, so he'd put this platform because you can put a bird feeder up there so he could watch these birds and take pictures of them. So shortly after we moved in, I want to say it was coming right up on springtime, like late winter, early spring. Now, in Washington State, they don't have the winters like we have here in Minnesota. Okay. So I remember this storm just hitting us, and my brother and I slept up in the loft of this fifth wheel. I slept on the right hand side, my brother slept on the left hand side. And just think of the worst storm that you've ever been in. Wind howling. My dad had put anchor straps on the camper, had put cement blocks underneath it for more like of a foundation, kind of keep it more steady. And I remember laying in bed and just feeling the camper just kind of rock every time the wind had hit. I mean, just it would just, and so thunder, sheets of rain, lightning, and I remember just all of a sudden, it's like our camper just tilted and then slammed back down. And it tilted so much, I actually rolled off of my mattress into this little area between my brother's mattress and mine. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I jumped up and opened up this curtain next to this little window that I looked out. And just as I did that, this flash of lightning just lit the whole area up. And I saw this massive thing. Couldn't get a good, wasn't really sure what it was, but it walked underneath the limb of this one tree that was over by where our burn barrel was. And it just walked off into the woods. And I shout to my dad, Dad, a Bigfoot trying to tip us over. And my dad's like, shut up. You didn't see no Bigfoot. You're going to wake your brother up. Just shut up. Go back to sleep. There's no Bigfoot out there. Now, at this age, I knew what Bigfoot was because now, a year or so prior, I'd seen the Patterson Gimlin film. I had seen In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. So I'd seen these things, and then I found a book in the library, and I could not read it enough. I would always check that book out, and it had like mysterious monsters or something. It had like the Loch Ness monster in there and Bigfoot, and I'm like, yeah, this is true. And I always thought that they were always in Northern California, maybe up in lower, Southern Oregon, maybe, but Oregon and Washington is separated by the Columbia River. There's no way these things are going to cross the Columbia River. Nah, they're not up here in Washington State. Not at all. Never really thought about it. But then when I see this hulking figure move off into the woods, that's immediately where my mind went. So the next morning, I get up and go outside and go down the deck and go around the front, and I'm out there looking, and I'm looking and for any prints, couldn't see anything. My dad comes out. He's like, "What are you doing?" I go, "Dad, that's where this thing it went underneath this tree. It went underneath this limb right here." And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "Dad, its head almost touched that limb." And he's like, "It. Listen, stop telling stories." Dad, I'm telling you, it's what it did. And so he goes, "Okay." So he goes and gets a tape measure out of the shed, and he starts putting the tape up. And he goes, "Tell me when to stop." So I tell him to stop. And he looks, he's like, "There's no way, Daniel. There's no way." I go, "What?" He goes, "This is like close to 8.5, 9 feet tall." And I go, "Dad, I promise you, I saw that. I saw something go underneath this limb." He's like, "Listen." And I turned around because I was getting a little upset because he wasn't believing me. I turned around and I see this massive dent in the fifth wheel. And I go, "Well, what did that?" And he kind of looked at me and he looked at the dent and he's like, "Don't tell your brother." And I go, "See, I told you." And then about that time, my little brother comes wandering out. He's like, "Don't tell me what." And my dad goes, "Oh, a big tree limb hit the camper last night." And my brother's like, "Oh, that's what that noise was." He's like, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "Everything's okay." So we go about our business. Okay. Now, was I frightened? I'd say I was more cautious than frightened because, again, I know I saw something. I didn't know what it was. I just assumed it was a Bigfoot because you see the Patterson Gimlin film. I'm reading this book. That's what it looked like. Okay. Not 100% confirmation. No tracks. You could see where something moved off into the woods, but there was no defined tracks. So now we're going to fast forward to around spring break time. Okay. And we're coming home. My brother and I had spent the whole spring break with my aunt and uncle in Tacoma. And we're coming home and it's late. It's about 11, between 11 and midnight, around that time frame. And as we come off of the paved road, we dip down as my dad we dip down, my dad's headlights, he didn't have his brights on, but the headlights were, I would say, strong enough where I caught a faint eye shine way up on this road. Now, back in the day, I thought this road was like 5 miles long. Randy, in actuality, the road's probably a mile, maybe a mile and a quarter. Okay. But in my 12-year-old mind, this is the longest dirt road I've ever seen in my life, gravel road I've ever seen in my life. So I go, "Dad, did you see that? There's eye shine up there." I go, "Turn on your brights." He's like, "No, no, no. It'll see us. It'll hear us coming. It'll move off." I go, "Dad, what if it's a deer?" And my dad had this really nice Mustang. I'm not a car person, but I know it was like a 71 Boss 302, something like that. I remember it was black with gold trim, like gold stripes, and it had louvers on the back window. My dad's car was a hot rod. I know that. And what he had done is he put some aftermarket um, driving lights, and he angled them out in such a way that he would have absolute visuals on both sides of the road. Living out here, either coming up to the gravel road or going down the gravel, deer everywhere. Last thing he wanted to do was hit a deer or have a deer run into his car. So my dad turned the lights on. He's like, "No, no." I'm like, "Okay." So we go down, we come up this little rise, we drive, and you see it again. I go, "Dad, there it is. It's still there. It's still there. Turn them on, turn them on." He's like, "No, it'll hear us." Listen, I'm driving, don't worry, it'll move. It'll get out of the road by the time we get up there. I'm like, "Okay." So we go back down this dip, completely loose side of it. We start coming up, and he car comes up. My dad hits those lights, hits some brights, hits those driving lights, and it lit everything up in front of us. And there it was. She and I say she, was kind of hunkered down on the side of the road. What she was doing, I have no idea. No clue what she was doing. She stood up and just kept going and kept going. I didn't think she was going to stop standing up. She just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And she did one of these motions. She brought her hand up like this to block her face or her eyes because of these brights. And she turned at her waist, turned her upper torso to kind of look at us. This sighting took 5, maybe 10 seconds at the most. And when she did this, I saw the stuff on her hands. I saw the lines on the palm of her hands. Her skin was black. She was a dark charcoal gray. Hair was 3 to 4, maybe inches hanging off of her forearm area. Had no hair on her face except for like around her jawline, kind of almost like I'm not saying like a goatee, but it just looked like it all worked. Her brow ridge, she had didn't have a conical head, but it was more of a rounded. I mean, it was you could see a rise, but it was kind of more rounded. Um, she had a nose like ours, well, more of a nose like yours, but bigger. And then I don't know why this. I found it didn't look like she had a fuller upper lip, like it was a thin upper lip. And her eyes, they were when I saw them, they were like an amberish red, like a deep amber, right around that color. Her breasts were showing. She had hair on her chest, but not as thick as it was like off of her shoulders or on her back. Her thighs were massive thighs, just massive thighs. I didn't look at the groin region. Um, and as soon as she brought her hand down, she was turning back, and that's when I ducked down into the floorboard. In my mind, I'm like, holy crap, they're real. They're here. Oh my gosh. I'm excited, but I'm also terrified because you don't understand the size of these things until you see them. I could tell you all, go ahead.
So was she on your side of the road when
Yes.
y'all were so that would be why your response was to duck down because you would have been the closest to it if the car goes on by it.
Yeah, she was roughly about 20 to 25 feet in front of the car when my dad hit the brights. And my dad never sped up and he never slowed down. I remember looking up at him and he's just got his hands at the 10 and 2 on the steering wheel and he's just looking straight ahead. He's just that I get goosebumps talking about this because his reaction was no reaction that I can remember. So as we're going, I'm thinking, okay, we're past her. We're good to go. Now remember the angle of my dad's lights. I peek my head up looking out the passenger window. I see her standing in the tree line. The tree line from the edge of the road to the trees, maybe 16 to 20 feet. I didn't see amberish, reddish color eyes now. I saw black eyes, like a glossy black. My dad turned into our driveway, if that's what you want to call it. I didn't give my dad a chance to stop the car. I opened up the car door and I jumped out of a moving car. I was at a dead run, jumped up the 4 steps onto the deck, unlocked the camper, and ran inside. A couple seconds later, I hear my dad's door shut. I hear him walking up on the deck. He has my little brother's arms. My brother is absolutely dead to the world. My little brother, you could drop a grenade off next to his head. It would go off. He wouldn't even wake up. So he puts my brother up on the bed. He immediately comes down. I'm like, Dad, what was that? Dad, what was that? I knew what it was. I needed confirmation from my dad because I'd seen that thing in a book. I saw that thing on the Patterson Gimlin film. So I keep asking my dad, he's not saying nothing to me. He immediately starts going and he's pulling food out of the cupboards. He's pulling food out of the refrigerator. He takes it outside, puts it on a table that's on our deck. I hear him leave. I hear the other car door. I hear the passenger side door shut because I didn't shut the door. I hear him shut that door. He goes and gets a ladder, comes back up, puts a ladder up, puts all the food up on this platform because there wasn't a bird feeder up there yet. Comes into the house, goes underneath the sink and grabs a rag. And I'm like, what is he doing? So I'm watching him and he takes this tube out from his back pocket and he starts squeezing this stuff onto this rag. I found out it was grease. And he got back up on the ladder and he greased this entire pole. And now I'm fixated on this. Why is he greasing this pole? He gets down, puts the ladder up, and he starts coming back in the house. And I go, Dad, why did you do that? Why did you put that stuff on the pole? And he goes, oh, so no animals get to it. And in my mind, I don't know why it went here, but I go, oh, you mean like raccoons? And he's like, yeah, raccoons. And I go, Dad, what was that? Later on, I asked him, I go, Dad, what was that? And he's like, you know what that was. He goes, it's exactly what you think it is. He goes, son, it's a Bigfoot. And I don't remember the conversation that we had after that. All I remember is my dad going out. He was a smoker. He didn't smoke in the camper. He went out on the deck and he lit a cigarette, kind of shut the door. It didn't shut all the way. And I'm sitting on his bed because you walk in the door, his bed's right there. It was a queen, like hideaway bed, but he was a bachelor. He never put the couch up, so it was always a bed. So I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, kind of, cross-legged, and I hear him talking. So I get up, being nosy, and I hear him say something to the effect of, and again, this is not verbatim what he said, but he said something like, hey, we saw you. We know you saw us. These are my boys. This is my family. These are my sons. Please don't hurt them. This up here, pointing to the food, I assume, this is all yours. This is for you. Please don't hurt or scare my boys. We don't mean any disrespect. We just want to build a home here. We're family. And I hear him take one last long drag off of his cigarette, and I hear him, put it in an ash can. And I jump back on the bed real quick, and he comes in. I go, who are you talking to? And he's like, what? I go, who are you talking to out there? He's like, oh, I was praying. And I go, Dad, I didn't hear you say amen. And he kind of got a little smirk on his face, and he goes, amen. And he kind of looked at me, and he had this smirk. My dad had this grin about him. And he's like, buddy, you want to sleep with me tonight? And I go, yes, I do. Absolutely, I do. So we get, he gets ready for bed. I get ready for bed. Now, if anybody remembers those old alarm clocks that are like a brick and they have these big numbers on them and they would flip and behind it had like an amber type light. Well, my dad had one of those and it would, hold on a second here. My kid. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Um, she, um, she, uh, so I'm laying in bed. I'm laying behind my dad. My dad's between me and the door. Okay. And I've got my back kind of rested up against the, um, I'm sorry, Randy.
Well, that's all right. I'm going to throw a little question out at you
Okay.
while you're texting your whoever. When it came to the platform, first of all, I think it's amazing that that far back to have a gentleman, your father, going out with that kind of passivity, where you put out an offering in a location for them, and you actually have a discussion, open discussion, if they happen to be at the edge of the woods listening. That is something rare, especially back then. But yet, that's something now that a lot of people recognize as beneficiary to developing some type of relationship to to these creatures or to these human type creatures in just I find that fascinating. But my question to you is, how high was that platform that he initially set up for the birds? Is that something that an 8 foot Bigfoot could reach up to the platform? And if that would mean to me that the grease on the pole was to keep raccoons and stuff from getting the food that was for the Bigfoot?
Um, Definitely. And here's the thing, and I'll answer that question in the story.
Okay.
Okay. Um, so, as I'm laying, I remember falling asleep, and I remember holding, kind of like staying close to my dad, putting my hand, just touching my dad, just so I know that he was there. And all of a sudden, between 1 and 1:14, it's between. I remember seeing the clock read 1:14 a.m. I rem And again, I don't know why that number pops out to me, but it does. I hear this. You've heard something. You've heard what wood sounds like when something heavy is placed onto it. It creaks and it groans and it cracks. You can hear the pressure that wood is under. That's what I hear. And my eyes shoot open. And I look at my dad, and my dad puts his finger to his lips, like, don't say a word, be quiet. And then I hear another step come up on to the deck. And my eyes get wider. And I go to ask my dad again, and he's like, so I kind of whisper, I'm like, how many are there? And my dad kind of whispers back, he goes, I think three. And now my eyes are getting even bigger because apparently he was hearing things before I heard them. And I'm still laying on my left side. I still got my back against this wall of the camper that's probably this wide. Okay. And I hear something run by that wall that I've got going towards the back part of the camper. And I look at my dad, and he again tells me to be quiet. And you hear something else come up onto the deck. And then I am not proficient in Bigfoot chatter, but I heard something like something like to that effect. And I remember I had to bury myself on my dad's shoulder because I almost screamed. I'd never heard anything like that before in my life. No clue what that was. I'm holding on my dad. My dad's doing everything he can to like grab a hold of me and pull me in as close as he can to like hug me to let me know that everything was going to be okay. If these things wanted to, they could have ripped the whole side of that fifth wheel off. No problem. I cry. It's obviously I had to cry myself to sleep because the next thing I remember is I get woke up by like a ray of sunshine coming through the window on the door, coming through the little curtain that was on there. And I get up, jump off the bed, open up the door, and I run out onto the deck. Now, from the top of the railing to the ground was probably 7 feet tall. And as a kid, when my dad first built it, I used to climb on there and do backflips off of it until he showed me why I shouldn't do it. The belt came out, told me I was going to kill myself. And I climbed up there and I looked, and there was nothing up there. It was all gone. So I jumped off the railing. My dad hears me jump off the railing. He loses it. You better not. I go, Dad, it's all gone. It's all gone. Dad, the food is all gone. It's all gone. And he's like, what? And he comes out. And now he comes out the door and he's looking around, and I go, Dad, look at this, because I had walked over and started looking at the pole, and you could see where something had grabbed a hold of this pole. And then you saw where something had ran its finger all the way down the pole and then wiped the grease off on the railing, the top of the railing.
Wow.
And I go, Dad, look at this. Look at this. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. And he's like, shush, shut up, shut up, shut up. You wake up your brother. Shut up. Don't you dare say a word to your brother. Don't. I'm like, Dad, but come on. He's like, listen, we don't need your brother scared. We don't. All right. You saw what you saw. I saw what we saw. Listen, just knock it off. So I kept this from my little brother, wanting to tell him so bad. Now, from this time frame, coming into summer, we'd already built a tree fort out there. We built a tree house like 15 feet up in the air. We'd explored the woods tons and tons of time. And the whole time I'm looking. I'm looking for tracks. I'm looking for whatever. I didn't know what tree structures were. I didn't know what crossed trees were for. I didn't know what any of that stuff was. Do I recall ever seeing it? I might have. I don't remember. Never came across anything that I thought looked like a track, a print. So this day sticks out. It's summer. It's a Saturday. My dad was supposed to have the day off. We were going to go fishing. My dad got a call late Friday night saying, hey, we're doing inventory tomorrow. You need to be there because you are a shipping and receiving manager. You need to be there. But doesn't matter, but nothing. You need to be there. So my dad's ticked off. He leaves early in the morning. He's gone the whole day. So me and my brother are there. I'm 12. He's 10. Back in the 80s, if I was 9 and he was 7, we would have still been home by ourselves. And so we're doing stuff that we just really shouldn't be doing. We're cranking up Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and the Who and things like that on my dad's LPs, his vinyl. Speakers are out on the deck. We're cranking music. We got the TV on. We're playing video games. And I want to say about 4:30, 5 o'clock, I hear my dad pull up, and I heard him do something that in my lifetime I've only heard him do a handful of times. And he slammed the car door. Like he was mad about something. And he slammed the car door. And looked at my brother and I go, oh man, Dad's mad about something. And then he says my entire name, yells it. And he's not even up on the deck yet. And so I go, what? Which you don't say what. Your dad calls you, you go see what your dad needs. And he's like, get out here. And as I'm getting ready to come out, he comes running up on the deck and he's like, so do you want to tell me what's up with the burn barrel? Now, we didn't have any, garbage service, so we burned all of our trash. And he goes, do you want to tell me what happened to the burn barrel? I go, what are you talking about? And I go, I didn't burn any trash. He's like, yeah, okay, but what happened to the burn barrel? I go, how am I supposed to know? Haven't you gone over there today? Why what? Now I'm kind of getting irritated. I'm giving my dad some sass. My mind is telling me to shut up. My heart is like, dude, you're already past the point of no return. You might as well just keep bowing up on your dad, which is not a good idea. And he's like, get out here right now. And he's gritting his teeth and he's like, get over here right now. I'm like, oh, I'm so gonna get it. But I keep running my mouth. So I follow him over to where the burn barrel is. And as soon as I go over there, I don't see a burn barrel. And I go to my dad, I go, what happened to the burn barrel? He's like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I go, Dad, how do I know? This is a 55-gallon drum that he had put sand in the bottom of it. So if we did have a windstorm like we did, months earlier, it wouldn't blow it all over the place. And he's like, well, what'd you do with it? I go, Dad, this burn barrel probably weighs as much as I do. There's no way I can move this. Why would I move the burn barrel? He's like, well, Daniel, it just didn't get up and walk away on itself. And I go, I bet you it did. And he's like, no. I go, I bet you it was that Bigfoot. The one that hit the camper. It was that Bigfoot. He's like, shut up. He goes, just find this burn barrel. I'm gonna go over here. You just start looking for it. So whatever why I did this, I don't know why. I went into where I thought I'd seen a Bigfoot walk into the woods. I get about 30 feet into the woods and I find the burn barrel. And it's not just sitting in there like it was set up there. It looks like it was thrown in there. Like something picked up this burn barrel and chucked it into the woods. So I yell to my dad. I go, I found it. I found it. He's like, what'd you find? I go, what the H do you think I'm looking out here for? Which I knew I just signed a death warrant. And he comes running over there. And he's like, well, how did it get in here? I go, Dad, how in the heck do I know this? I don't know. And he's like, boy, I'm telling you. And I already knew I'm past the point of return. I'm just going to go for it. So my dad and I are starting arguing because now he's accused me of something I didn't do. We've already saw what we saw. I know it did it. And we're going back and forth. Now, my little brother is a peacekeeper. He hates it when people argue, especially me and my dad. He hears us yelling at each other, and he comes right around just as my dad says, don't tell your brother. And my brother again goes, tell me what? This time my dad wasn't fast enough, and I said, a Bigfoot threw the burn barrel in the woods. And that's when my dad whack popped me in the back of the head. And my little brother looked at me and he looked at my dad. And he goes, well, I don't think it was one of the small ones that I saw. It must be one of the big ones. And we're like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, yeah, I've seen a couple of small ones before. Whenever we play the music real loud, I walked out on the deck and I've seen them. I looked out the window and I've seen them. They walk along the edge of the property that's all cleared, and they sit over here in these trees. I'll show you. Come here, I'll show you. So he walks us across the little clearing where we were going to build a house and over to these little crop of trees. It's a not super thick, but it was a pretty thick part of the woods. He goes, yeah, they sit in here. He goes, sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get to see them. And he goes, I've taken some baseballs and tennis balls and thrown them out there, but they never give them back. They just keep them. And I'm like, holy crap. So then he starts, telling us, you know, I was going out to the fort, out to the treehouse one time, and I saw one jump out of the treehouse. He said when it hit the ground, it's like he didn't like you see how people jump and they kind of squat down, they come back up and they start running. He said this it didn't happen. He just hit the ground almost at a run. Like he kind of levitated down and just took off running. But he said he definitely jumped out. It was so fluid of emotion. He said it was so quick. And there had been times where my brother had been walking, him and I had been walking out to the treehouse after we all knew now that they were out here. We would get like 10 feet into the woods and we'd stop, we'd look at each other and yep, let's get back to the house. We just turn around and go back into the house. There'd be times where one time in particular, I was standing in the window of our tree fort. My brother was in there and I just got this feeling. I looked at him. I go, man, he's like, yep, we need to go. I'm like, okay. So I looked out the window real quick and I called him the peeker. And he was solid black, easily close to 10 feet tall, just massive shoulders. And he would peek out. He'd look out to one side like this. And then if he saw me make eye contact with him or I was looking in his direction, he'd snap his head back. And then he'd kind of peek over here like this. And if I do the same thing, he'd snap his head back. I honestly believe, Randy, that we had a family unit living out there. The peaker, I think, was the dad. Of course, the female was the mom. The two my brother saw, the juveniles, and the one I think that hit our camper and threw the burn barrel into the woods. I think he was like the older sibling, like a young adult, older teenager, young adult. He was just a jerk. And that's pretty much the only aggression that I ever had from any of them was that type of aggression. Um, but there'd be times my brother and I'd be riding on our go-kart. It was a two-seater, and my brother like, there she is, there she is, there she is. And I'd snap my head back real quick just to see her kind of move off into things. And I honestly believe whenever my brother and I were out and about, she was close by. And I think she kept that older child in check as well as the dad kept it in check. The dad, that's the only kind of partial sighting I saw of him, but his presence, like everything around changed when he was present. And then my dad got in a really bad car accident, October of 85, and he was almost killed. And so um, we had to move back to Tacoma, moved to Tacoma to stay with my aunt and uncle while my dad um, recovered. And the day that it happened, I don't know how my dad did it. One person stopped, took him to work. He called us from work. He's like, "Listen, I was in a bad car accident. I'm going to the hospital. Your aunt is coming to pick you up. Get your stuff ready. We won't be back for a while." Packed up everything that I wanted, and we went back to Tacoma. The following spring, we went back, and I had already taken everything I wanted. My dad, my aunt, my brother were inside the camper, packing things up, throwing things away because we lost the land, unfortunately. Um, the new owners wanted the camper off. My dad sold the camper. The new owners wanted the camper cleaned out because they were coming in a week or so to pick it up. So I just kind of walked around the property, and I get a little choked up when I think about this because this is like the greatest place on earth. And I noticed one thing when I was walking around the camper that I saw an odd print on all of the windows, even the ones up on the loft. And it looked like someone or something was trying to look in to the windows, but we had the the curtains pulled, and I think it was them checking out to see where we were at because one day we're there and then we're gone.
Wow. So at this point, you're like 14. I'm
Uh,
assuming it
about
was a
thir
year.
about
So
13, yeah.
so it was only like a year later. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I wrote down a few questions. You
sure.
know, I did a video about a farm that had 12 kids in Independence, Missouri, and they had 2 years of two. There was two Sasquatch on their property, and the same behaviors where they didn't even know it until there was snow on the ground that these things were going around from window to window. And she said that inside their house, it would be like 12. She had 12 kids from 2 years old to 18 years old, so it was like a family circus when you looked in those windows and you seen all the activity of kids.
Yeah,
So you're describing the same thing where there's a certain affection from the Sasquatch point of view of familiarity, and kind of made me a little sad there when you said you saw what could be the face
yeah,
imprint where it was searching for you guys,
yeah.
and that's kind of sad. But what I'd like to go back to is way back when you had the night where two or three of them came up onto your deck
Hmm.
and took the food. I wrote down that I wanted to ask you what your dad did in that moment tells me something. He jumped a huge gap of understanding of how to deal with these beings in a passive way. There's no way he could have just done that out of the blue, knowing how to do that. I think when you guys had the sighting on the road, or you had the sighting, and he saw the dent in the side of the motorhome. So I'll bet you he went and talked to some neighbors without you knowing it and got an understanding of what was going on there and how to deal with it. Because it sounds like he knew how to deal with it before he had to deal with it. That's kind of a weird place to get to.
At that time, there was only two houses in that area. Two. I believe my dad did know, and the reason my dad was raised in Ketchikan, Alaska. When my dad was 16, he had an encounter with the Kushtaka, which is the otter man. Before my dad, again, it was either before he was going to basic training or before he was going to Vietnam. My dad was wanting to get one last hunt in, go hunting. And on that hunting trip, he believed till the day he passed away that he saw a werewolf. Now, I've asked my dad if he had seen other things, and he wouldn't really talk a lot about it. And I think that my dad may have had other encounters, not only possibly on that property, but definitely up in Alaska. And I think because, he had a friend of his who was native, uh, I think it was, he's Tlingit, uh, came down and to visit my dad. They were having, I think it was like my dad's 40th or 45th birthday, but I don't know there's 22 years between me and my dad. And I was like 15 at the time. And I remember my dad telling me that whole Otter Man story, and I just laughed at him because I thought it was hilarious. I thought he was making it up. And then his friend John, who was native, was like, "Don't laugh. It really happened. Your dad did have that." And I think that, you know, they've encountered other things up there because like us, my dad was in the woods a lot. So I think he might have had encounters up in Alaska, just never really talked about them. He told me about an encounter that my grandfather had when he was a logger up there. Uh,
Well, it's fascinating. I gather that he had to have had a foreknowledge of
yeah.
if not Sasquatch itself, of other hominid type creatures. He had to have had a foreknowledge
Hmm.
because you don't just wake up one day and know to go out and passively talk to them. Let's leave them an offering.
Yeah.
Let's tell them that we're not here to cause any problems. These are things that you just don't know overnight how to do
Yeah.
that. So he clearly have had conversations with his Native American friends
Hmm.
at a younger age. I'm I completely believe after what you've told me that he had those conversations to even know what
Yeah.
to do, and that's clear. But I'd also like to point out when you found the burn barrel that was tossed in the woodline, and you say that that's where you saw the one walk under the branch the night you looked out the window in the
Hmm.
storm. That's a pattern of behavior that I did not know until 20 years deep into this, that when it came up a certain way over a ridge, it had been using that same trajectory for 20 years when it came to the rock throwing and everything else. I I had no idea that if I would have focused on that one area, that's the same area every time. So there's a pattern of usage that
Hmm.
if they don't get molested or discovered, they will keep using the same pattern of usage. That just makes perfect sense. And there's one other thing I wanted, you know, I just I as you can tell, I'm always just fascinated, especially when we can uncover things. But you were describing when you were a lot of times when you were out with your little brother and say like riding your go-karts and stuff,
Hmm.
and you'd catch a glimpse of, and you say that was what you thought was the mother.
Hmm.
So what I learned at that 400 property, I sent you the audio of the chatter.
Yep.
What we learned there is because of where the prints were located, that it seems to be a matriarchal system where the youngsters are constantly guarded and taught by the mother. That's what it seems like.
Hmm.
Don't know it for sure, but you just described a probability, and that is she's the one that allows the youngsters to come in close. She watches them. She allows them the freedom to learn how to deal with people by letting them explore closer to people. But she's the one that seems to be in charge of that activity when it comes to the youngster, and that's amazing because you practically described that.
Yeah. And I never didn't even know that. I never put those pieces of a puzzle together. Um, but I truly believe that if the young ones were around, she was definitely around. Um, and I asked my brother how tall they were, how big were they? And he said the biggest one of the younger ones was taller than I was, and I was probably 4'6", 4'7". So, and I said, as tall as me? He's like, no, more like as tall as dad. And my dad was 5'7". And I go, how big is the smaller one? And he goes, uh, almost as big as dad. So like between 4'6" and 5'7", he was around that age. So I just and when I first started really talking about the story and putting things out there, and I had people say, perfect opportunity to take pictures, and you said your dad was a bird watcher, he had a camera, you never decided to take pictures. And my answer to that was, listen, I grew up in a household where if it did not belong to you, you did not touch it. And I didn't know how to use my dad's 35 millimeter camera, And what am I going to do? Sit out on the porch waiting for him to come out so I can get a picture? What am I going to sit on the stairs looking out the little window? I'm 12 years old. I'm not going to spend my whole time waiting, hopefully, to see one of them. It's not like I saw them every single day,
Right.
you
And
know?
we're not ruled by the same rules that people think that we should live by now are not the rules we lived by then. And
No,
that is if I had something happen now and I've got a camera close enough, well, yeah, I'm in the business of trying to get this evidence right now. So
right?
I've got a different mindset now than I did then when I had my encounter and all this other stuff. So yeah, I mean, you let things slide because you get caught up in what's happening, and that's all in retrospect. So
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, and it's when I think about it, I wish my dad and my little brother were still around because after I talked to Wes Germer about this encounter I just told you, actually before, I started doing a lot of searching. YouTube, Google, everything I could find about encounters. I would type in the searches, you know, parts of my encounter, looking for anything that came up. And I made a checklist. And I'm listening to this audio and I'm listening to these stories and I'm like, holy smokes, I've heard that before. Oh my gosh, that happened to me. I remember hearing that sound, and this is really weird because this. So, I mean, I don't know how much time we have. So,
Whatever you need, buddy.
oh, okay. So, after doing all of this type of stuff, my dad was present for two of them. And some people say these are the scariest stories that they've ever heard. I had my dad with me. My dad was my hero. My dad could do anything, and nothing would ever hurt me. You know. So when I was about 6 or 7, in like the late 70s, this is when my dad wanted to take me out hunting. Now, it wasn't hunting season, but he wanted to take me out to an area where they had a tree stand and that him and my uncle would hunt quite often during hunting season. And so we went
Was
out
this in
there.
Washington? Was
Yep,
this in Washington? Okay.
yep. Like north of Aberdeen, like northeast of Aberdeen, Washington. We go to this place and later, I call it the hunting camp. We get there, we set up the tent, and my dad walks me out up this trail. And this trail, it's like a good 30 to 40-minute walk up this trail, up a little hill. It's not just a straight shot. And there's this deer stand. It's a homemade deer stand. Looks like it's an old pallet that they fastened to this tree. And this tree is the only tree around. The front of it, if you climb up, you're overlooking like this little clearing area over an embankment, and then down below it is this stream. There's a clearing that's maybe 30, 35 yards wide or long before you get to the tree line. And then there's two game trails that intersect about 35 feet, 20 to 35 feet around there in front of the deer stand. Okay, so if the deer come out from behind you, they're not going to look up and see the deer stand. They're going to come literally right beside you and underneath you. and then that's when you get them, right? So my dad takes me up there and he goes, "This is this, and blah 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 blah." I'm like, "Okay, great." So the next morning we wake up and it's not like 4:30 in the morning wake up, because it's not hunting season, but it's a little later, and there's enough light so you can see. It's like the pre-dawn time, and my dad has his knapsack, and whenever we're out in the woods, he always carried a rifle. It was a 30-30 lever action, and we walk up to the deer stand. And I climb up, and my dad climbs up, and he starts looking through his knapsack, and he realizes he left something back at camp. And he's like, "Listen, you're up in this tree stand, like 15 feet up in the air." He goes, "Nothing's going to get you up here. There's nothing out here that's going to hurt you. You're perfectly fine. I'm going to run back down to camp. I know exactly where it is, what I left, and I don't recall what it was." And he says, "I'll run right back." Okay. Not a problem. My dad says everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. I see my dad go down, see him go over the little hill down towards camp. So I'm sitting up there and I don't hear anything except for the stream that's down below. And this is where I learned the skill of being able to take a nap wherever I am. So I'm sitting in the deer stand. I got my legs all stretched out. My left foot's kind of hanging over a little bit. And I just get the point where where your chin starts to touch your chest when you start dozing off. And I jerk, like I jerk myself awake. And so I go and I kind of look around, and for whatever reason, I look down and I see my boot. My boot is untied. Okay. So I go and I tie my boot, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking around. It's getting a little lighter and things, and I'm watching around. I'm kind of seeing, this is pretty cool up here. I could. And then the stream has that hypnotic pull over me, and I start nodding off again. And then boom, my foot jerks. I immediately look down, and my boot's untied again. Now, this so far from the first time to the second time, about 15, 20 minutes. Tied up, and now I'm laser locked on my boot. Like, my dad's messing with me, or my uncle. One of these two guys are trying to scare me. Watching my boot, and I hear this super loud crack come from the right. And I snap my head over real quick, and I'm looking, and my boot jerks again. And I look down, and my boot's untied a third time. I stand up in the deer stand, and I start hollering. I don't care if the biggest trophy buck in the world is walking by. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, "Dad, this isn't funny. Stop scaring me. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go home. I'm done. I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore." I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And I'm looking around, see if I can see my dad hiding somewhere trying to play a joke on me. I see my dad come running up the hill, like he's at a full sprint. And he's like, "Shut up. You, you're up here screaming. You're going to scare everything around." I said, "I'm not doing this anymore. You're up here untying my boot. It's not funny. I want to go home." He's like, "Whoa, whoa." And he could see that I'm freaked out. And he's like, "Whoa, calm down. What's going on?" So I'm standing and I'm looking down at him. I'm like, "I'm telling you, you untied my boot." He's like, "Buddy, I didn't untie your boot. What are you talking about?" So I tell him the whole thing. He's like, "Okay." He goes, "All right, just relax. I'm gonna look around. Everything's gonna be fine." Okay. My dad's got his rifle. He's my dad. So he starts walking behind the deer stand. And now I'm standing up and I'm hugging the tree and I'm kind of watching my dad. And he walks up, I don't know, 10 yards maybe, and he squats down. And he's looking at the ground. And he's just kind of, and he looks up at the tree line. He starts kind of scanning. He stands up and he puts his rifle at the ready. And he's looking and he stops and he's like focusing on one part of the tree line. And then I hear my dad go, "Ch, ch." He puts a round in the chamber with that with a 30-30, and he brings it up and he's pointing right at that area. And he's looking, and all of a sudden I see him start moving back, and he yells, "Get out of the tree right now. Daniel, get out of the tree." And I'm like, "Dad," he goes, "I said get out of the," and he starts cussing. So I get out of the tree. And he's like, and he comes up to me as by the time I'm at the bottom, he's right next to me. He's like, "Listen, I need you to run back to camp. Don't stop. I'm gonna be right behind. I'm gonna be right behind you. Don't stop." Okay? So I run. I don't hear my dad coming behind me. So I stop. And just as I stop, he turns to come running towards me. And he freaks out. He's like, "I told you to run back to camp." And we play this cat and mouse game like a couple more times before we are now both at a dead sprint. I'm running with everything I got. My dad's right behind me. We come running into camp just as my uncle comes out of the tent. And my dad runs right up to him and he's like, "What are you doing? Trying to scare Daniel, blah, blah." He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you talking about?" He's like, "I just got back to camp. Like, literally just got back to camp. What's going on?" He's like, "We need to go right now. We need to go." And he's like, "What's going on?" I hear him talking. I don't hear what they're saying, but they're talking. And my uncle's like, "Okay, let's go." And we pack everything up and we leave. Years later, I asked my dad, "What'd you see?" He's like, "I didn't see anything." He goes, "I heard something I've never heard before in the woods. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was bigger than anything I've ever encountered in the woods." And we left. Now, fast forward a couple more years. I'm about 8, 9, and this is a bigger camping trip now. It's me, my dad, my brother, my uncle's friend, two of my uncle's neighbors, and each one of the neighbors brought one of their kids, their sons. So it's like a boys' weekend. We go to the same place. Go to the same place. We're fishing, we're playing in the stream, we're shooting 22s, we're making a bunch of ruckus. We have this big old army tent that sleeps like 16 people. We have plenty of room in there. And the first day, uneventful. No big deal. Get up the next day, we're kind of goofing off, doing the same thing. My dad and I and everybody, we're all walking around. They're showing us all this type of kind of doing like a survival thing. And we start shooting some more guns. And then way off in the distance, I hear this loud, like, roar, yell, whatever. And I look at my dad. I go, "Dad, was that a bear?" And he kind of looked at me and he goes, yeah, that was a bear." Like, okay, no problem. I know we all have firearms. All the adults have firearms. Cool, no problem. We eat dinner, we go to bed. Kind of thought we heard some stuff walking around that night. Get up, walk around, see some tracks. Now, this is all pre Bigfoot for me. I had no clue what Bigfoot was. That wasn't even in my vocabulary. And I'm like, "Dad, look at these bear tracks." And my dad's like, "Oh, yeah, those are bear tracks." That day, we're goofing off, shooting more guns, fishing, just having a great time. And it gets right about after dinner. We're cleaning up. We got everything put away. It's almost before we go to bed. And we hear that same roar, yell, whatever. This time it's way closer, very close. And I go, "Dad, that bear's close." He's like, "Okay, let's go to bed." So we all go into the tent. My uncle's friend and his neighbors and the boys were on the far side of the tent. Me, my dad, my brother, and my uncle were on the other side of the tent. I don't know what time it was, but it was dark outside, and I hear something definitely rummaging around in our camp. So much so that it sounds like it's destroying our camp. I sit up. My dad's awake, my uncle's, all the adults are awake. All five of the adults are awake, and they've all got firearms. I wake up, I'm looking at my dad. Again, he puts his fingers to his lips, tells me to be quiet, and I'm just getting ready to ask him a question. And that's when I hear something take its nails and run them the length of the canvas tent right behind me, around the back side of the tent, over on the opposite side of the tent, and then you hear it run off into the woods. And when that happens, it goes completely silent. Completely silent. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my dad, I'm looking at my uncle, his friend, all the adults, their eyes are wide open. My uncle had lit one of those old Coleman lanterns, and he kept it down really, really low. And so I could kind of see everybody. The other two boys and my brother were all zonked out. I didn't go back to sleep for the rest of the night. I stayed up with the adults. My uncle sees some sunlight coming through part of the tent. He gets up and he goes out through the tent. He puts his rifle through the flap and he kind of moves it to the side. And then he goes outside. And then I hear him say, "Dean, you got to come and see this." My dad is not good. My dad's an old man at this time. I'm thinking, I jump up and I run out the flap of the tent because I want to see what my uncle's telling my dad to come and look at. Randy, our campsite was completely trashed. Lawn chairs that we had were just bent and trashed. Every cooler we had, the lids were completely ripped. These were metal coolers that had like the latch that kind of slid down and locked in like that. These coolers were there were completely ripped. The lids were completely ripped off. Our food bags that they had up in the trees, those things were on the ground. Everything that was not in a can was gone. Cans were crushed. Everything that was, it was just destroyed, and there were prints everywhere. My dad looks at me. He goes, "Get everybody up. We're leaving." So I go in. I wake up the boys. We start dragging sleeping bags out. Now we'd carried a lot of gear in on deer sleds. It's a lot of stuff to carry when you got four boys that are not going to be able to carry their own weight. We pack up whatever we can. The tent was hastily taken down and just thrown on a deer tent, and we start walking back. Now it's like a good, 15-minute or 45-minute walk from where this logging road is. We start rushing through. It's the two neighbors, their sons, my dad's friend, me, my brother, my uncle's friend, me, my brother, my dad, and my uncle bringing up the rear. And as we're moving, all of a sudden I hear my uncle say, "I've got one here. I've got one on the left." I hear my dad say, "I got one on the right," or vice versa. I can't remember who said what. They're like, "We got to go. Let's go." They keep prodding us on to move faster. My brother's gassed. One of the other little kids are gassed. They get put up on one of the sleds, and now the adults are pulling them. We get up to the road. We jump into the back. I jump into the first truck. Gear gets thrown in there. My dad runs to the second truck and jumps into it. The two neighbor guys, they go up and they get into the cab of whatever trucks they're in. My uncle jumps into the bed of the truck with me. My little brother's in the cab of the truck in the truck I'm in, and we start taking off. And I'm laying down in the bed of this truck. All of a sudden, I see my uncle bring his rifle up and he starts shooting. Boom, boom. Then I hear my dad start shooting. I'm up near the cab of the truck and I peek my head up so I can try to see my dad. And I see my dad shooting. And about that time, this massive stick, branch, whatever, comes sailing through the air like a spear almost. And it goes between the truck that my dad's in and the truck that I'm in and sails over the road. And my dad and my uncle are not shooting just to shoot. They're aiming at something. They're being very selective with their shots. And we hauled butt out of that area all the way back to my uncle's house. And as far as I know I never went back to that place. But I know, as far as I know, my dad and my uncle never went back to that place either.
So clearly they were keeping those shots were made to keep something at bay.
Yes, they weren't just randomly shooting. They were either trying to take something out or keep it off of us.
Wow.
Now, growing up, I do remember that to a certain extent, but after listening to stories and hearing encounters, it leads me to believe what was it? What could it be? Before I even discovered what the internet was, I always thought it were bears. But bears aren't gonna, I don't know.
Right. We all know that the only time a bear is going to behave that way is a sow with cubs. And once the fear of her cubs not being attacked is mitigated, they wouldn't continue to attack, follow you and attack and stuff like that.
Right. But yeah, that was in those were two encounters that I had before my inciting, and I just suppressed that down and just pushed that down because again, I thought that they were bears.
Right. Right.
No
Well,
clue.
it sure confirms that your dad had a lot of knowledge, whether it be from his hunting trips even before you came along,
Hmm.
and as a young man, up in Alaska or wherever with his native friends. Yeah, he was a man who possessed some knowledge of the subject and treated it correctly when you guys had that 5 acres. Uh,
Yeah,
obviously, he at that point he knew what he was doing and it worked.
I miss him.
Very
I,
good,
I
very
miss
good.
him and my little brother.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. Uh, well, you're gonna have to carry on. Uh,
Oh yeah.
and I mean, is there anything else you want to cover? Dude, I am completely satisfied. I mean, we can, we might touch on some more stuff whenever I come over and you interview me.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm just fascinated with behaviors. There's so much to learn once you can understand, the behaviors. I think, that gets you a lot closer.
Well, let me ask you this, okay? I mean, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. And I mean, your boots on the ground. You get out there and I mean, just your story alone on how you were kind of bringing them in and you were in a hide, so to speak, and seeing the behavior. I've never done anything like that. When I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey for Air Base Ground Defense Level 1 training, I was in the Air Force. I was a security police officer. And we went to Fort Dix, New Jersey for ground combat training and Air Base Ground Defense. And we would go out into the Pine Barrens where their training grounds were, and we had to do set up ambushes and we had to walk patrols and this one patrol that we were walking, it was at night. There was a moon out. Wasn't a super bright moon, but there was enough moonlight, and I was walking point for my squad. Now again, we're walking around with M16s with blanks, and our task was to follow this patrol route, and we knew we were going to walk into an ambush, and however we reacted to the ambush and how the people kicking off the ambush, how they kicked it off, we were going to be, graded, so to speak, by the instructor, the cadre that was with us. Well, as we're going along this route, we're not walking in the middle of this dirt road. This dirt road is big enough for two deuce and a halfs to go side by side. So it's a pretty wide road. But we're walking on the side of the road, kind of into the bushes a little bit. And I'm about 20, 25 meters ahead of my squad, point man. And as I'm coming up, I see this thing about 70 meters ahead of me stand straight up on the left. And it was massive. Well, I get down on one knee real quick. And as soon as I go down, this thing goes down. I'm like, what the heck was that? And I'm thinking it's somebody messing with us, right? So I'm still sitting there. I'm trying to comprehend what I just saw. And our instructor comes running up and he's like, Hamilton, what the F are you doing? We're behind schedule. We got to get up here and do this and this and this. I go, I just saw something 70 meters to the left, stand up. It was big, and then it squatted back down. So he had some nods with him, and he's night vision. He's looking. So I don't see nothing. Okay. And for anybody that listens to this, this wasn't thermal. These are your old NVGs, like first generation. It's all green. And he goes, "There's nothing over there. Get up. We're almost there. Just get up and go." I'm like, okay. So I get up and I hear him behind. Oh, everybody get up. Everybody get up. I take about 20, 25 steps. And this thing jumps up from the exact same location, one bound in the middle of the road, another bound off of the road, and then takes off at a diagonal direction away from me. As soon as I see it jump up and land in the middle of the road, I drop to the prone position and I roll to my right. And I'm again, just instincts took over. I'm pointing my rifle that way, but again, it's blanks. They're not going to do anything. And when I do this and it takes off, you hear it moving through the trees really quick. And next thing you know, we hear automatic fire from the M60, and then M16 starts shooting. Everybody's shooting blanks. But this thing apparently had ran through the ambush site, and it scared the M60 gunner, and he just opened up because they thought it was possibly us. Well, when they start kicking up, my instructor's already up by me. We get up and he's like, let's go. Noise discipline is out the window. Let's go. So we're at a dead sprint to this location now, which wasn't far away from us. Their instructor, my instructor, they start jawing at each other. He goes, why'd you send someone through to break up this ambush? And he's like, I didn't. What are you talking about? He goes, something big ran through, and you could still hear it. You could still hear it making noise as it's running through the trees after the everybody ceased fire. You hear the ceasefire call that everybody stopped shooting. You could still hear this thing hauling butt through the trees, through the forest. I
Did
don't
it
know what I.
did it at any point in any of the conversations was it covered that possibly you guys might have thought, okay, we've got a superior officer unbeknownst to us that's testing our perimeter, that's testing our ability to defend the platoon, or did you ever think that you were being tested somehow by a possible, not really a Sasquatch, but
Right.
maybe, yeah.
No, I thought we might have had Op 4 out there, but they never told us. Again, they're not going to tell you when Op 4 is around. They'll say Op 4 is out here somewhere. You don't know where they're going to be. But our whole reason of being out there at that time was we were to walk into this ambush so they could kick the ambush off and then be graded or judged or instructed on how to do it, what not to do, and how we were supposed to react to it, how we would, whatever the whole pretense of it was. Never in a million years would I have thought that, okay, this is the point in time where an officer's gonna or someone's gonna kick off something else other than what we're already, you know, ready to do.
Well, I had an interesting thing happen. I own a siding company and I put siding on houses. And about 10, 12 years ago, I was putting siding on an older man's house here in my town. And I'm retired fire department. And he and I had a relationship back when I was on the fire department because he was like a city manager or a city personnel manager or something to that effect. So I'm putting siding on his house. And of course, I'm telling him about my Bigfoot encounter and how fascinated I am about the subject. And he said, I've seen one. And I said, really? I said, when? And he said, I was up at Fort Lewis in 1976
Hmm.
doing night ops. And he said, I was bringing up the rear of the platoon. And he said, I watched one. So I did an interview with him about what happened in 1976 at Fort Lewis, and he saw it. He was hiding off in the he slipped off the trail because he heard that they were being followed, and he didn't know who it was. He thought
Hmm.
maybe it was a superior officer, so he was going to show them that he was on that, protecting the. So he dicked off the trail and hid, and this Sasquatch come down the trail that had been following the platoon. Fascinating story.
My dad was at Fort Lewis in 1976.
I bet they know each other.
You never know. Mm.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to do an interview for you. And
Tomorrow.
so tomorrow, 8 o'clock,
Yep.
we'll get it done. And yeah, so basically, we'll just continue this conversation then.
Yeah. Do you want me to plug my channel or?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Anybody out there, if you're interested, and I hope you are, I can be found on YouTube and Spotify. Those are the two main ones. And it's the Cryptid Podcast. Just how it sounds, the Cryptid Podcast. And if you've had an encounter and you'd like to come on the show or just share your encounter, you can reach me via email, and it's the Cryptid Podcast 72, the number seven, the number two, at gmail.com.
Right. All right. Well, very good. Dano, I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
you, buddy. And I'm glad we finally hooked up. And
Yeah,
I will see you tomorrow, buddy.
absolutely. You have a good night.
All right. Bye bye.
All right. Thanks, bud.
For the